Hi everyone, today I'm here with Jen, also known as LemonKiwi, to talk about casting at the Tier 2 level. So, to begin with, how did you get into the Overwatch scene?
That's a tough one. I've just been playing so many games, and then when Overwatch came out, I was always into like the hardcore, like army shooters, like Call of Duty and stuff. Like the real manly games. And then Overwatch came out, and it was like, oh, this very colorful, cartoony game. And I tried it out. It's still an amazing FPS, and the graphics obviously attracted me a lot, and then the fact that there's so many characters to play and there's so much strategy to it. So that's just kind of stumbled upon Overwatch, suggested by a friend. And what's funny about that friend is I ended up dating that friend, and now we're still together years later. So that's how I found Overwatch.
That's
Just a
awesome.
happy coincidence.
And then how did you get into casting from there? Like casting T2
So
Overwatch?
Yeah, so casting I've done for even before Overwatch. So back in like the Call of Duty days, that was like the first game I ever casted. I know it sounds strange, but I actually just like liked playing, and I was kind of a little bit of a tryhard, a little bit hardcore, and I remember there was these women's tournaments, kind of like a small like little club of like 20 girls or so, and we wanted to, hey, let's see if girls wanted to cast. And then I volunteered, and I found out, hey, like it's because I was always into the strategy of games, and what better way to kind of dive into that than to cast, which is just breaking down the strategy, which at the time in Call of Duty I was a color caster, so I was able to just kind of explain the strategy of Call of Duty when it had strategy at the time. And then once game after game, Overwatch came out, jumped into that, and I was like, this is just way more fast, much more action, a lot more strategy, and I just fell more in love with that. But then the strategy, I was almost way more attracted to the action of Overwatch than I was by the strategy of it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so fast paced and so much going on. So I went from a color caster to a play by play. So that was a fun little transition. But yeah, I've been casting for a while.
Awesome. So, since you said play-by-play and color casting, so there is distinct differences between the two. And how would you suggest people develop those skills, like each of them, because they're very different?
Yeah, it's kind of based on what you like, of course. Casting, you should always pick the one you like to do and you are good at. So start by which role do you like more, and if you need help breaking that down, do you like the strategy of a game? Do you like kind of talking why someone is doing something, what they're thinking about, why this was a mistake, or why? If you like roasting people, color caster is all for you. I mean, the top 10 roasters in the world are, I swear, are color casters. If you're more of like a bubbly, energetic personality and you have a really strong voice, like, has anyone ever told you, oh, you speak well in front of others, or you're really a loud person? Well, play by play is probably for you. Action's all about kind of being loud and kind of bringing that personality, that energy. Not that color casting doesn't, but it's just kind of more focused on
Mm-hmm.
that. And just how quick-minded you are. I think if you're a little bit of a slower thinker, you like to kind of break things down slowly, then maybe color casting's more for you. And then play-by-play, there's so much going on, especially Overwatch. So if you're a fast thinker, go there. But for anyone who doesn't know the difference, play-by-play is play-by-play. So you go through each play as it develops throughout a fight or whatever game it is. The main bulk of the action is broken down by the play-by-play, kind of as it happens. And then the color caster is the color. It's kind of like the analyst role. It fills kind of in between the fights, which filling sounds like just dead air, but it's really breaking down what you just saw for anyone who didn't catch it. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Awesome. Now, a lot of times when you're at the T2 level, you will have to cast games solo. How much more difficult is that, and how do you adjust?
It's like impossible. I just stay away from it as much. I think every caster should stay away from that. But like when you're learning to cast, you might do one or two just because no one's gonna maybe want to cast with you when you've never done it before. So you kind of got to get your feet wet maybe by yourself. So solo casting, you have to cover both roles, and there's no time to breathe. And when you want to breathe, it sounds jarring because you're like, oh my god, I have to keep talking. And that's why there's two people in casting, to give each other time to breathe. So solo casting, just if you could avoid it, do it. But if you need it to practice, do it. And especially if you don't know which role you want yet, might as well just do both and see which one you hate the most, and then go for the other one, basically.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. Like I've watched like gaming broadcasts, and there's like no commentary whatsoever. I'm like, this is feels really slow and awkward without a caster on it.
Yeah.
Now, we're talking casting partners there. Some of the best duos, my favorite, Tasteless and Artosis. They have casting partners that they really mesh with. So how important is it for you to find like a consistent casting partner at the T2 level?
So I think it's something that not a lot of people know when they're first starting out as casting, as they kind of try and develop themselves. They really want to just be the best caster, and that's 50% of what that is. But every casting duo is a product that is sold together. There's very rare times that a company is going to want to mix and match. You're kind of marketing yourself as a product, as a duo. And when you even discussing rates and everything, you kind of become like almost having a relationship with that person, and not in any kind of romantic way, but just in a platonic way of like, you are now coworkers, you're kind of co-owners of your product, and you need to market yourselves as much as possible, and whatever your partner does affects you and vice versa. So a lot of people need to grab a partner as soon as they can and just develop with that person, because it just makes your casting so much better too, because you know each other. So and there's different types of casting partners. Some people that are more like funny and kind of more centered on comedy, and what a better way to gel with someone. If you've casted with someone for a long time, you get to know your senses of humor, and a lot of the mechanical or the kind of the techniques of casting makes it so much easier when you know when someone else finishes their sandwiches or their sentences, and then you kind of just know how each other talk, and you want to sound like your best friends when you're casting, because it makes the viewer comfortable, it makes you guys sound great. So just kind of bouncing around different people is just going to be kind of starting from scratch all over again. You're kind of needing to know what kind of vibe are they bringing, are they the funny type? Are they the analytical type? Are they the kind of just wing it? Like, there's so many types of people, and you have to look like you're best friends with them on cast, no matter if you've known them for 30 minutes or like 10 years. That's what you have to do. So partner is so, so important, because then you lock them down, you say, you ask the question, do you want to be my partner in casting? And you guys develop from there, because then you guys can go through feedback cycles of like going through VOD reviews, and you guys can help each other improve. And having a partner that wants to improve with you is so important, and I can't recommend that enough. Like, I started getting I think Curious is like my first long-term partner. I think we casted a year or two together, and now it's leg day, and it's been about a year. But, kind of like the duo you mentioned, duos can last for years, and they just sound so good. And when they're so known together, it just makes your product that much better.
Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, Tasteless and Artosis have been together for like 18 years now, I think.
Oh my god. It's like longer than marriage.
Yeah, I mean, they've been at it for a long time now. Now, you also report for Hotspawn, doing writing, reporting, interviews, etc. How do you think being involved on the reporting side helps with your casting?
So many ways. And I kind of put this under the umbrella of content. Just putting yourself out there in content, because your casting opportunities, you might not get a ton, or maybe there's going to be like 1,000,000 in one month and then 0 in all these other months. Yeah. And then how are people going to remember you if they haven't heard from you, or if they haven't seen you do what you do? And that, it helps to have a healthy social media. So that's kind of step number one. And if you have a healthy social media, you're all over the place, Instagram, whatever, that's, marketing yourself as a caster is so important. You're kind of becoming a personality. So treat it as like an influencer personality, whatever you want to call it. You're basically that as a caster. And if you have more of a following, you have a kind of a brand going for yourself as a caster, then you can charge more and people are going to want to hire you more. So, social media, step one, but then content. So how can you show you have interest in a game you want to work for? Because, your skill at something is great, but then your passion also kind of bleeds in, and it just makes you look like an even better candidate when you're just a go-getter. So when you can make content about the game, whether it's kind of like YouTube videos, whether I have a heavy science background, so I got a lot of writing done. So writing, I just kind of fell into that. So it's either, YouTube videos, writing, streaming, just any kind of platform you can make content on to show how interested you are in the game, how much you love it, or your personality, if that's what you want to sell. If you want to sell how smart you are at the game, like, you just got to make yourself brandable in one of those cases. And for me, writing helped a lot in so many ways. I would definitely recommend writing, because if you're like to be on camera more than you have to, which kind of sounds messed up, but just if you want to kind of, let's say, diversify your skills. Let's say if you want to just try something less on camera, you know, something a little bit more chill that you could do in your pajamas, try writing, because, you know, you don't have to dress up for writing in a pandemic. So writing, you get to kind of cover the storylines of the game. So if you're really into the hardcore competitive scene, you can write about all the storylines, which makes you look really knowledgeable. Depending on how you write, makes you look really well spoken, I guess, not like what I just said right now. And you also get to know the players in your scene, because at least the type of writing I do, I interview a lot of players, and if the community knows you, then the people that hire you are going to know you. So it's just whatever you can do to make yourself known by the community, whether it's through interviews, through content streaming, just replying to people's tweets. Like, you could start out, you know, just reply to people's tweets and then move on to interviewing them, whatever makes you comfortable. But casting is not good enough. I mean, unless you're like an incredible, just star-studded caster, maybe casting is just good enough. But adding content to your portfolio just makes you like that much more amazing. So
Awesome.
yeah, it helped a lot.
I can tell. No, you're very passionate about that. I love it. So speaking of which, let's talk career trajectory. Like, so how do you measure your own like career progress and success in the tier 2 scene?
So that's like such a tough one of like, where am I at compared to everyone else? Because as much as people don't want to admit it, you're always kind of comparing yourself to other people, especially other casters, how talented I am compared to them, how much better, whatever. And that's really tough to gauge. I think it depends on how many people are reaching out to you. That's kind of like, are you getting hired is your number one question. If you are, then you are pretty successful. And then how frequently are you getting hired? It kind of gauges how successful you are. And then depending on how often you're getting hired, how many like your followers and how much people like you, then you can kind of gauge on where you want to charge for your services. And then I know that's like a big hot debate in the community, or just in gaming in general right now, of whether you should charge for your time. And I know some people are wanting to do free work to get their foot in the door. And I really highly encourage that, because, you know, if you're not getting anything else and you just need a little bit of experience, definitely like try volunteering or just try a free cast here and there, and don't overwork yourself, and really gauge your own talents and get opinions from colleagues. Don't get your opinions from Reddit or Twitter people. Like, some people don't know what good casting sounds like, but your colleagues do, and just mastering your technique right there is going to be important. But just gauging your success, yeah, just the frequency of you getting hired. If you're not getting hired, also, just casting is very volatile, and it's very dangerous to get into if you don't have a backup plan. So don't go into casting without any other financial means happening in the background, because casting has a weird thing where every event in the world wants to hire like in October or just like a random month. So you'll have like 5 gigs in 1 month, and maybe you won't have any gigs for a couple of months. So don't gauge it all on the frequency of 1 month. So kind of just go off of a year. And it's going to take years to get to the levels of the tier 1 people, you know, your Monties, your Doas, and your et ceteras. Like, it takes years. Like, they've been in the scene for decades, you know? So don't gauge your success on the first year of you starting. Okay, it takes at least like 2-3 years to even like start to be successful, or start to even have your seed planted, your roots in the ground, you know? So don't be like, oh, the first year I haven't gotten paid, or first year I haven't done anything. Like, you're learning, and it's kind of a marathon, not a sprint. And if you're more of a destination type of person, like, oh, I need to get rich, I need to get famous, or I need to be on Overwatch League broadcast or whatever tier 1 channel, if you're a destination type of like goal getter, you're gonna be really disappointed, because things change all the time, and there's no way of seeing the future that way, or to plan for that kind of future. So you kind of gotta enjoy the learning process. If you're that kind of person, you enjoy getting better and better every day, and you're happy where you are. And if things get better, then cool, and if not, then you'll keep working. Like, if that's the type of person you are, then casting would be perfect for you. But I see a lot of people kind of jump in, they're like, I haven't done anything in a year or two, I'm gonna quit. And it's like, so you really have to gauge, like, over several years, like, the frequency of how you're getting hired, and then you can kind of gauge how you charge after that.
Awesome. Okay, so last couple things I want to talk about. what are some common issues you've experienced in T2 casting that are easily fixable?
Tier
Like
two
the caster
casting.
can anticipate, like, oh, there's going to be a problem with this broadcast if this isn't taken care of.
Yeah, problems. I think it's a very stressful environment to be a caster because there's a lot going on. Especially in production. You know, I think the number one thing is that can scare casters too is tech issues and how to
Hmm.
deal with those. And there's a lot of things you learn as a caster that, you know, is not just natural or no one kind of tells you about it, whether it's kind of dealing with tech issues and how do you deal with stress. Because it's like, oh, okay, you get really anxious, you get kind of freaked out, but then you're also affecting everyone around you. So you
Mm.
have to learn how to be like such a good front facing person to just deal with stress and not stress everybody out around you, because how good you are to work with really also affects how likely you're going to get hired again. So if you're a very anxious, like freaking out, like don't deal with stress well kind of person, then you know people might not like to like work around you. And if you're angry or you're sad or you're whatever, you know, you have to learn about that. Social media is a big like question mark a lot of people are learning about, of like what makes you a good person or what makes you a brand friendly person. I think would be the one, you know, we gotta, you know, you don't want to be like an XUC or anybody weird that can like, because you're gonna be under a company. So think of it as, would Disney or Pokemon, would little kids watch you and your social media and would be terrified? Would their parents not let, you know, their kids look at your social media? That's good, kind of can that's how you can kind of tell like how clean your social media is. And you don't have to be the cleanest. It really depends on what company you're trying to go for, because obviously companies like Pokemon, if you're into casting that or any Disney type of thing, they want you like scot clean, like
Yeah.
nothing going on, right? And then there's some companies that like those kind of rough around the edges personalities,
Hmm.
and they like that kind of controversialness. So it's, you really just got to look up the company and know what personalities they already have hired and what personalities they like, and be like, okay, this is what they're allowing or this is what they like. And you can even reach out to those people of like, what are some just good social media etiquette.
Hmm.
And that's another thing that's difficult to learn, and stuff like that. Tier two, this kind of applies to any casting though, but it's tier two especially because I always have like colleagues that tweet stuff that I'm like, I don't know about that, and you know, and they don't know that they're kind of gathering a bad reputation. And that's a big thing in tier two casting, is that people think that, oh, just because I'm small, a small little caster, nobody pays attention to me. And a lot more attention is given to you than you think. So it's always good to be extra careful. So there's tons of like do's and don'ts for tier two casting, but those two I think are the biggest ones.
Is like the second thing there, like with social media, something that you can potentially solve with having like a public casting account and like a private social account? Is that something you'd recommend for people?
um, Not, I mean, if you just need to get some thoughts out, you know, if you need a diary that's social media, I even have had like a private account just to kind of spew some negative, like just get some bad energy out, you know? But don't make it like, people who want to get to know, like when you have your brand, you want to seem like a human person, right? You
Hmm.
don't just want to tweet about your cast and what's going right, you know? You want to also be a relatable person and post about your daily life. Just, you know, it's, so I wouldn't recommend having a private like, this is my me account and this is my brand account, because you want
Hmm.
to be both. You just need to filter a little bit of what you're thinking, right? So, you know, just avoid politics, religion, you know, any sexual stuff, and you should, that kind of umbrellas a lot of things. But if you just can't stop yourself from tweeting that controversial hot take, maybe a private account just until you,
Figure
just so
out
you
your
can
own PR
divide them.
training.
Yeah, just yeah, PR training is big. Yeah, but you know, you can be a controversial figure, but you have to be ready for the cons, the pros and cons of being that controversial figure. And when you're starting out, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I want to be like Monty, or I want to be like this, you know, semi controversial figure. And I'm just like, those people can be like that when they're getting paid six figures, at the tier 1 level, just
Yeah, it's like
start
Monte
out being
has
normal.
years of experience where he has his name and his talent to back him up for it.
Yes. Yes, you need something to back you up before you can be that controversial. So just start out being normal and then work your way up to being whatever you want to be at that level.
All right. All right, I love it. So, last thing, any just like final advice you would give to people who want to be play-by-play or color casters?
Just practice as much. It's such like a forehead thing to say of like practicing. But it really depends what your issue is. If you have a lot of energy, go to play by play and just really review your work with people that you respect, and colleagues that know what they're talking about. Or there's a lot of tier 2 and tier 1 casters who do VOD reviews, so they go through the video with you and break down what you need to work on, and only listen to those people. So I know as you grow up from a baby caster to a teenager caster and so on to your tier 1 level, you need to ignore the noise outside, because it becomes very overwhelming and it makes you think that you're doing something wrong when you're not, or makes you think you're doing something right when you're doing something wrong. A lot of people can sometimes get their egos blown up too, so it works kind of both ways. So don't get depressed and don't get an ego from social media, and just work on you and work as hard as you can, because that stuff is not going to come for free. I guess that's the advice I have.
Definitely avoid those Reddit comment sections, like you said.
Yeah, basically that.
Awesome. Well, that is all I have for you today. So I want to thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
No problem. Me too.
Awesome. And for everyone else, we'll see you next time.